Hey everybody, this is Numpire with the South Clan here to talk about aircraft carriers. That way, if you want to start sailing these mighty ships, you can, and hopefully my commentary will be able to help you. So, today I'm going to talk about the main aircraft carrier lines, their strengths, their weaknesses, and their playstyles in a general sense. That way, if you want to pick one, we can work from there. Alright, so I'm going to start off with the Imperial Japanese Navy. Now right here is the Hakiryu. I have the space camo on board just for the cool little spaceship look, and honestly I think it's just a great camo. Great permanent camo to have. Also creates some cool sound effects in battle. So what are the benefits of the IJN carriers? Well, we'll start with the rocket planes. We go over here. Rocket planes are fairly quick at 169 knots, at normal cruising speed up to 210 knots. They do fire 6 rockets per plane, times 3 planes, that's 18 rockets. They each pen 30 millimeters, with a 15% chance of fire. Good for your hunting your destroyers. Not the greatest, but not the worst by any means. Planes they have decent health pools. They're better than the Germans, but probably less than their British and American counterparts. Dive bombers are really good for attacking cruisers. These are armor-piercing dive bombs. Each bomb does 6,800 damage. That's citadel damage, which means it's very hard to heal back for most cruisers. So, these you get 12 planes to start with, an attack flight of 3, so dumping one squad is very recommended at the beginning of each match for each flight, so that you can only have 9, and when you attack you use 3, you're more likely to conserve planes. You'll use that in most cases with dive bombers and torpedo bombers. Dive bombs are very good against German battleships, especially Bismarck and Frederick the Great. Kerfers can be a bit tricky to penetrate with its superstructure being as thick as it is. Yeah, Hakiryu, dive bombers used to be the meta in terms of dive bomber. Well, we'll see if that gets beaten, which I'll tell you right now, yes it has been, and I'm sure many of you know that. Onto the most powerful plane, in my opinion, of the Imperial Japanese Navy is the torpedo bombers. These things are mean. If you look closely, you'll see that's over 9,000 damage per torpedo. The Hakiryu used to be the flying Shimakaze. Because, believe it or not, instead of a 2-plane attack like it currently has, with those 9,000 damage torpedoes, it used to be 4. Yes, I've seen videos way back in screenshots of Hakiryus doing over 300, sometimes I've even seen over 400,000 damage because of these torpedo bombers, and their low concealment. Look at the detectability. 6.7 kilometers, and yes, that is a full concealment build. That's actually extremely good, because now you can spot enemy ships and not have your planes be detected. Very good for stealth spotting in terms of, providing information to the team. Not only that, but you get 12 planes in the flight. Each attacking flight is 2, so you get 6 attacks with torpedo bombers, and as we all know, torpedo bombers get a heal. So you can, if you do this correctly and you time everything correctly on an isolated target, you can attack 6 times. I've personally done that on a Musashi, and pretty much took the thing out of commission in one squad. It's actually very strong. Torpedo bombers, they're also quite fast with the torpedoes. 50 knots is nothing to sneeze at. That is quick. I'm sure some destroyers have even been caught off guard by the speed of torpedoes. They're not the fastest, but they are fast. And they hit really hard, as typical with most IGN torpedoes. Weaknesses, Hakiryu is the armor. Not so much the flight deck as it is 95 millimeters thick. You're not really getting through that without battleship high explosive. But it's the side, and you'll see this is a common trend amongst aircraft carriers. You want to get the side of the aircraft carrier. 19 millimeters all across the side, and right here's the citadel. 130 millimeters, easy pens. Easy pens. If you're in a cruiser and you get close range and you can hit this, you want AP. If you're at long range and you get the side, you want AP. Stalingrads, even battleships, Hakiryu will disappear quickly. 13 millimeter on the island, so pepper that with high explosive. Be careful the conning tower, 57 millimeter. Hakiryu, she's a good aircraft carrier. She's also not horribly when it comes to concealment. 13.7 kilometers. She can hide. She can move, and she can hide. with a speed of 36 knots. I believe that is with a speed flag. Yes, that is with a speed flag. Take the speed flag off. 34.5 knots. She's not slow. She's definitely got some speed on her. She is not a slow aircraft carrier. Now, Kiryu, if you wanted to try out a nice, good aircraft carrier that's actually kind of easy to play, IJN is very specialized in terms of torpedoes, and if you want to practice on aerial drop torpedoes, you definitely want to go with IJN. Great ship to train your Kiryu captain is the Kaga. I'm sure if you know anything about history, Kaga, one of the first, is part of the first carrier division alongside not her sister but similar ship Akagi. Yes, they are not sisters, they are not the same class, but they are similar designs. Akagi was based off the Yamagi battlecruiser, versus Kaga was a Tosa class battleship. So, Kaga, very nice ship to train up your Hakuryu captain if you have her and you want to go for Hakuryu. I recommend getting used to Kaga. She does get the 4 torpedo bombers attack like the old Hakuryu does, but she does take a hit in the damage of only 5,400 damage. But Kaga does compensate. She does have a lot of planes. Alright, let's move over to the Americans. We're going to Midway. I'm sure many of you have heard of her sister, that is now becoming the bane of Tier 10, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Midway, though, is who we're going to focus on, as I do not have to have FDR, but I do intend to get her. Alright, Midway. What's great about Midway? Well, bit of interesting is how she is. Versus Hakuryu is a more strike damage. Midway is a more area amount over time, but she can do some good strike damage. So we'll start with the aircraft. We'll go with the attack planes. 180 knots, cruising speed 220 knots, maximum speed. I currently have Tiny Tim rockets on board. I do not recommend those anymore. It's been a while since I played my Midway. But there was a bit of a nerf done to the Tiny Tim rockets. They're still the exact same rockets. They didn't nerf them in terms of statistics, they nerfed it in terms of the attack. It used to be when you would go in with the Tiny Tims, you would have more of a dive bomber-like reticle, where it would be more elongated from front to back. But now it's a standard side to side, from left to right, in terms of cone, which has really hurt the Tiny Tims because these are really good bow on. I mean, 68 millimeters of penetration, going for noses, and front deck armors of battleships, really good. Same thing with cruisers. With 34% fire chance, these things were mean. I remember using them on Lexington. Yes, Lexington does get these aircraft, does get these rockets. Sorry, not the aircraft, the rockets. So, if you want to try them out on the Lexington, if you have it, go ahead. I'm actually going to switch myself over to the H-bar rockets. These are the rockets that you will have on the Enterprise, if you have her, or they're also available, I believe, on the Lexington. But these have 33 millimeters of pen, so you can still arm British battleships. Same thing with French and some lightly armored battleships of other nations. With an 8% fire chance, but you do get more rockets. You get 10 rockets per plane, so 30 rockets versus Tiny Tim rockets, which is only 9. But it's on this trade-off. If you want to try the Tiny Tims, you can be my guest, because you get 5,400 damage with each rocket of a Tiny Tim versus 2,000 of an H-bar. Technically, you can do more damage with the H-bars in one salvo, but that is your choice. If you have USS Enterprise and you like her rockets, that's what these are. These are the H-bars. Those are the ones on the Enterprise. Now, let's move on to her torpedo bombers. Okay, torpedo bombers, they don't do as much damage. As you can already see, she only does 5,000 per torpedo. Now, it's like, okay, well, yeah, Hakuryu drops 2 torpedoes. Midway drops 6. Each plane drops 2 torpedoes in their attack squad of 3. So 6, so you're doing around 30,000 damage but then you also take into account torpedo damage reduction. But look at that speed of the torpedo. 35 knots. That is a huge hit to torpedo speed. You really have to be good at leading torpedoes. But if you get to tier 10 and you don't know how to lead torpedoes, what have you been doing? So yeah. Which, I mean, it is possible to fail your way to tier 10, but with this, torpedoes, you should be okay by the time you get to Midway. But 6 torpedoes, I mean, if you catch a sleeping battleship, that's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot. Alright, time for the dive bombers. The one thing this thing is known for is look at these stats. Look at that damage. Look at that fire chance. Look at that thing. 67 millimeters of pen, 69% fire chance, with dropping 6 bombs that each do 11,000 damage. Midway dive bombs can be scary. She's dangerous. She is dangerous with these dive bombs, and also these are actually quite good on destroyers if you can get the right drop on them. And you want to drop as low as possible, which means latest in the flight attack as possible. I've had success with dive bombing destroyers. Let me tell you, it's always nice to see a nice big chunk of like 10 to 12k come ripping off a destroyer. It is nice to have. And just like her Kiryu counterpart, she starts off with 12 aircraft, so dropping a attack squad in the water, and having to go back to the carrier will be a nice little help to your reserves. Planes conservation is very important with Midway. She's more of a damage over time carrier. Because of fires and floods, it's really what you really want to go after fires, which is why I really recommend a fire build. I know it might seem crazy with already that high fire chance, but I do have Demolition Expert, which causes a 5% bomb fire increase. Pair that up with the fire flags, which I do not have mounted. Shame on me for not having these mounted. With the fire flags mounted, come back over here, I now have a 71% chance of fire. Conqueror, you can go eat your heart out. But yeah, Midway. More damage over time based. She does have a decent alpha strike. She's more of the all-rounder in terms of the tier 10 aircraft carriers. You see a Midway? Yeah, give her her respect. When she coming with rockets, nose in. When she comes with torpedoes, nose in. Dive bombs, give her your broadside. That way, you don't have to eat a whole bunch of damage from those bombs that are more likely to miss. Onto the armor. Flight deck, thickness, 87 millimeters. Not even her own HE bombs can pen her. But when you come to the side, just like Kiryu, her side's weak. 19 millimeters across the side, and here's the citadel. So just like Kiryu, if you can get to broadside shot, you want to aim center mass at the water line. Get those citadels. Yeah, don't, at range, if you're going to hit the flight deck, try for high explosive, but fires don't stick to carriers. Because how many carriers actually sank from fire? I know, I'm being sarcastic. Lots of aircraft carriers sunk from fire. I mean, the Kaga here in Yusoryu, yeah, they kind of burned down. Just to name a few. Alright, on to the most powerful Tier 10 aircraft carrier, in my opinion, Manfred von Richthofen, or as I like to call her, the Red Baron. Yes, Manfred von Richthofen is the name of the legendary flying ace, the Red Baron. So, what makes Manfred von Richthofen the meta aircraft carrier if you don't have the Franklin Delano Roosevelt? 2 words, AP rockets. Yes, the rockets on these planes are armor piercing. So, each rocket can do 3,100 damage. Multiply that by 12. That's over 36,000 damage potential with the rockets. You're not going to get that. I've never seen higher than maybe 14k. But that's rocket AP Citadel damage. That's gonna hurt. And I'm sure many Moskvas, Minotaurs, Stalingrads, Des Moines, and Hindenburgs have faced my wrath. But it does not end there. No, not by a long shot. Manfred also has some other really good strengths. Let's go to her torpedo bombers. 55 knots on the torpedo speed. That's faster than Haikiri. That is faster. But look at the damage. She takes that. She has about less than half of what the Haikiri torps do. So, it's not great at torpedoing ships, but you want to go for that flood. It can help. Fast torpedoes harder to dodge. I'm sure Bum can tell you he's actually eaten Manfred aerial drop torpedoes in his destroyers. I've done it. I've actually landed all 3 on a destroyer and ended up killing it in one command battle because of that. Now, we're going to go to what is probably one of the most broken things about this aircraft carrier. I know, how can it be more broken than those rockets, man? The dive bombers. 8,800 damage per bomb, and she drops 3. Just like Hakiryu, she can do 26,400 damage on a triple Citadel. Yes, that is insane at tier 10. Hitting a little tier 8 battleship, yeah. And unlike the Hakiryu, which is only good against cruisers and German battleships, this thing is good against every battleship except for the Republic. I have Citadel Republic with this, but it's not that common. Very rare, but I have Citadel Montanas, Ohios, Conquerors, Thunderers, Gross Kerfists, you name it, I've Citadeled it with these bombs. Same thing with cruisers, Stalingrads, Moskvas. Oh, I love hitting those with these rockets. Not to mention, when I look at the aircraft speed, they are the fastest tier 10 aircraft. 180 knots over on each plane. These bad boys are quick. Okay, Numpire, so I know what you're thinking, guys. Okay, Numpire, so why would anybody play anything other than Manfred? I mean, it looks like it's such a powerful aircraft. Yes, but now I'm going to get into the major weakness of Manfred, and that's her armor. Unlike her other tier 10 counterparts, she does have a bit of a turtleback. She has a nice thick armor on the side, so it is harder to Citadel. In fact, you cannot Citadel her with Manfred rockets. You can Citadel every other aircraft carrier tier 10 with Manfred rockets, which is, I've actually sniped a Hakiryu. If you look in the Discord chat, going back a bit, you'll actually see me show I actually sniped a Hakiryu with rockets only. It's not that hard if they're alone, because these planes are so fast you don't really have to worry about the fighters. But there is one major weakness of the Manfred's armor, and that's her flight deck. 50 millimeters. That is not thick at all, compared to something like Midway, 87. Richthofen is very susceptible to high explosive. If you have a supercruiser, Stalingrads, Hindenburgs, Puerto Ricos, Yoshinos, Henrys with IFHE, pretty much if you can pen 50 millimeter high explosive, you need to shoot this thing with high explosive. Even battleships at range, fire high explosive at this thing, because you will rip through the flight deck and do lots of damage. And another trend that I've seen is sometimes an FDR will send its dive bombers at you because it can easily pen you and do a lot of damage. Similar to that, what the Indomitable can do at tier 8. But yeah, Manfred, big weakness. Another thing to consider is if you're fighting a bow in Manfred and he's kind of close, do not aim for the water line. That's a 60 millimeter icebreaker. Look at that. Only carrier to have an icebreaker. You want to aim for the upper nose or just aim at the front of the flight deck. That's 21 millimeters and 19 millimeters. There is some 30 millimeter and 50 millimeter plating back here. So if you miss and you go over and you hit here, you're going to bounce. She's quite tanky for an aircraft carrier, but she does have that main weakness of the flight deck being only 50 millimeters thick. Currently, for the clan season, if you are working your way up or you have the mountain of free XP to spend, Manfred is the one to go for. So wait, Numpire, you talked about American, Japanese, and German. What about the British? I don't have the audacious. Just shows how much I don't like the British aircraft carriers. Whereas the Manfred is the pinnacle of alpha strikes, damaging instantaneously. Audacious is the exact opposite. I will use the Implacable as our example. The planes are slow. They do have good health pools, but they're slow. They aren't very maneuverable. You don't have very high capacity. And you honestly just don't do a whole lot of damage. You're more reliant on fires and floods, mostly fires. And I'd rather have a Midway than Audacious. She's not good. But there is one saving grace for British aircraft carriers. It's better on Audacious than it is Implacable, the armored flight deck. As you can see, this is a tier 8, and she's already got over 30 millimeters. 38 here, and 76 on her flight deck. Yeah, the front's 25. But if you're aiming center mass, you can hit that super armored deck. When you go up to Audacious, when you look at her flight deck, 25, 38, 102 millimeters at the middle. Same weakness at the side though. Manfred likes shooting the side here. I can go through that, and I can citadel everything with my Manfred. So, audacious, aircraft, wrong one, come on. Oh, look at that, 137 knots. Even with speed boosting on the attack planes, you're slower than Manfred's planes. And it's the same across the board, 130s the whole way through. Yeah, these planes are slow. They are very, very slow. I would not recommend the British. They are the weakest, in my opinion, of the tier 10, of the aircraft carrier lines. Although, Indomitable is a fun exception. If you're looking for a nice, easy-to-play aircraft carrier, Indomitable is for you. I really enjoy mine. I'll do another video on that if you guys want me to. Let me know. Alright, I hope this has provided you some nice basic information on the aircraft carriers. So if you want the meta, I want to wreck everything in front of me, go for Manfred. You gotta be careful with the aircraft. They do not have good health pools. As you can see, they're pretty low. As compared to something like Midway, they are quite lower. As you can see, like right here, dive bombers, 2,700 versus 1,900. That is actually a substantial difference. That's 1,800. That's 800 hit points per aircraft. But there is a saving grace for the right turbines aircraft. If you look here, dive bombers have a heal, so do the torpedo bombers. So it is easier to work with. Well, I thank you all for your time, and I'll see you guys on the high seas. Let me know if you guys need any help there. If I cares, I'm more than willing to help you. Have a good one, guys.